Welcome back to 8 Cubes, where we talk about the most important topics in Marvel Snap. We're going to start with Warlock, the card coming out on Tuesday. 3/3 activate. For each unspent energy, give a card in your hand -1 cost. A very straightforward card that feels perfectly designed for Sunspot She-Hulk decks. Do you think this is going to be enough to bring Sunspot She-Hulk decks back into the forefront longer than Warlock's release week, though? And how worried are you about the potential for these decks invested in cost reductions to get Mobius?
Yeah, so firstly, I just want to put it out there that I love this card and the design of this card. Like, I think the effect is amazing, but then also at the same time, it's probably gonna get Omega screwed by Mobius, like for sure. Like, if this becomes like something popular, it's gonna definitely like increase the already insane amounts of Mobius you see in the meta. But that being said, this card literally, to me, if you pull this effect off for like -4, -5, I think you just win. Like, I think it's insane. Like, I think you just win if you pull it off. Because firstly, let's just say there's a Sunspot at the board, right? So you just like float an entire turn. Sunspot gets the stats, and then your hand gets reduced by -5, -4. Like, it's just insane, you know? Like, you could literally do stuff like She-Hulk plus like the 6 drop and another thing on the final turn. Like, you could do all of that. Like, I really think if you pull this off, you just win, you know? So I like this kind of decks as well. Like if you pull it off, it's just like an unbeatable amount of like free stats. But then obviously one Mobius and then you just lose. So I guess that's fair, you know, but I really want to make this work.
I almost want to make the comparison to Mr. Negative, where this is definitely not going to be like, whoa, as big as Mr. Negative. So maybe it's more like Pixie. If you've played any of those Pixie, She-Hulk, Shuri decks, it's kind of like that, where it's like, yeah, I have this in there just so I can cheat a little bit harder and make sure that I am more guaranteed to do point output stronger than the non-combo decks in the metagame. But this kind of deck, I kind of feel like the lack of like Shang-Chi in this metagame is actually bad for it, because this kind of deck is built to play around Shang-Chi by throwing priority, right? Like, it's built to exist in a context where people are playing a lot of Shang-Chi and Killmonger, which means that other decks that are not doing priority manipulation with their big guys are vulnerable to those, and you have the competitive advantage of not being. And I like, we don't live in that world. We hopefully, I guess, we will 2 days into Warlock coming out with the OTA on Thursday, but we have no actual guarantees of that, although I do think that it's likely. We are going to talk about that coming up in this show. But I kind of worry that this kind of deck is going to be caught in the middle. It's going to be too vulnerable to Mobius to justify being that vulnerable to Mobius without having large enough output. Like, if you're going to play a deck that loses to Mobius, you might as well just go ahead and play negative. And that way, when you play against the Mobius deck, you have the same losing matchup, but you have a better matchup against the combo decks that also lose to Mobius because you just go taller than them. And I have that worry about this archetype.
So that's the thing, right? Like, obviously, this is all pure speculation because we actually haven't gotten a card yet. But I do think that the sheer fact that this kind of deck, like, it's basically just like High Evolutionary stuff, then you throw a Warlock, you know, something like that. I feel like this deck just naturally draws better than Mr. Negative for sure. So like, if you do really get hit by the Mobius, it's not the end of the world per se. Like, you lose the highest end of your potential, but they are also playing a 3/3 and snapping on it, and you just know that they are snapping on it. They're snapping on a 3/3, and so you just know, right?
Which means now. Hold on now.
Or my bad.
Hold on now.
Like, yeah, okay, but like, still, like, they know that you know that they are snapping on that, and that you probably have enough stats to beat that by nature of just the like the Cyclops and all that kind of thing being like still bit more stats than just a Mobius, you know. So I feel like it's gonna be okay, you know. Like, if this just straight up loses to Mobius and they snap on the Mobius, I think you're gonna be okay, because Mobius is not like an insane amount of stats, you know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're thinking of two different decks here. Like, you're thinking this goes in High Evo, which makes me like it more. I was thinking it would go in like a Moon Girl She-Hulk kind of dump deck, right?
Yeah, I was thinking High Evo, yes.
Yeah, and so I think the fact that we're thinking about different decks here does sort of like speak to the different perspective and why we both have a different sort of evaluation here. Because if you're right, and this is a high Evo card, you're also right that it is my favorite card of all time. Like, if this is actually a card that can bring back high Evo in a real way, I am so in on that. I think the Moon Girl stuff is like a small combo. It's like imitating Mr. Negative. It's like, look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power, right?
True.
But high Evo, where it's like, okay, I have big guys that are reasonably sized, and even if you Mobius me, I'm gonna play big guys, and I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that you're playing a Mobius and my cards are bigger than yours when you do that. I think that sounds really plausible to me, and I am now pretty excited to try Warlock in a more normal kind of shell and just like use it as a mix-up in high Evo, where it's like, okay, if I don't think they have a Mobius, which means like I don't see an Invisible Woman first steps at this point, I am going to invest in this Warlock. But if I do think they have a Mobius, I'm going to play just big guys the entire way up the curve. Good luck with that. And I think that's really cool. Like I am into that conceptually. Jim Hammond came out last week, and I think largely we can do the review section of this by saying I think Jim Hammond is fine in the same way that I thought Cleo was fine. I'm typically higher on these one-cost cards than a lot of other people are because they are the only cards that are ever going to do what they do at that cost, right? So in a world where you want to play a deck that has this Jim Hammond stuff in it, he is going to be a good complementary piece to it. The problem is they keep doing these one costs that are almost asking you to build around them. And a one cost is very rarely going to have the ability to have big enough numbers on it to have the payoff to make it worth building around them, which makes the release weeks of these cards pretty awkward because it's like when you're building around a one cost, you kind of end up fundamentally engaging in a flawed premise deck building wise. And that was true with Clea, and that was true with this. And I think Jim Hammond is like a fine enough card. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's a bad card, but I think there's just an almost a disconnect with like, how is it even possible to make a one cost that people want to buy? Because I think they've gone into this and said like, we need to make our one cost interesting. Let's make them cool. Let's make them interesting. And when I think about one cost that people actually want to buy, I think about like Silver Sable. And I almost wonder like, what if the answer is don't make them interesting, just make them like 1 point too strong? Like that's what they should actually have been doing. Don't make a card that people find interesting in a specific archetype. Don't make your one costs build arounds. Just make like a 1/4 and then sell people the 1/4 and then they'll play it in a bunch of stuff, right? Like it almost seems like by making these cards build arounds with high ceilings, they limit the ability of those cards to ever actually be widely applicable because they are so specific. Clea is only going in a deck that buffs her. This card is only going in a deck with Luna Snow, Hope Summers, or the Fallen one in it, right? And so if you limit your cards in that way, I guess I just sort of wonder if like this is the inherent problem of one costs. You just can't do anything cool at the cost enough to justify the asking price of every card. And I wonder if that's actually true.
So I agree for the most part that like having one cost that require build arounds are it's a bit too much to ask, It's what I'm trying to say. It's because like the funny thing is that like if there was really a one cost that you could build around, that would be great. But like it would really have to be. It would have to be busted, exactly. It would have to be basically busted. Because like it's literally from the start of the game to the end of the game, you have access to that said one cost, But like other than that, the direction you mentioned, you did mention one card, you mentioned Sable, right? But I was looking more towards like Nico Minoru kind of thing, which I guess is similar. It's basically just a flex. You either make the one drop slightly more powerful than the average one drop, right? Or you make it a very flex kind of card, which is Nico, right? So I think that's the good direction for one cost, because the thing about being slightly bigger than usual is just that you can fit it in your final curve for like a power burst or whatever, that kind of thing. Or like for Nico Minoru's like example, which is she's flexible, so you can fit her in many different ways, and because she's low costed, it's very easy to fit her into many different like curves and stuff like that. So I think those two directions are pretty good, right? Just make it slightly bigger or make it a very flexible card. In Jim Hammond's case, it's clearly a very inflexible card. So yeah, I guess that's why this card's probably just gonna stay mid for quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's not like he's bad per se. It's just like
He's
him
just
being
there. He's just there.
Yes, like he's a solid complementary piece in decks that do what that stuff is already doing. But the question is, I think largely the thing you run into with Jim Hammond, and someone I called Jim Hammond like Jim Scammond, and someone on Twitter added me and was like, "Oh yeah, you called it Jim Scammond. Look at my 53 power Jim Hammond, right?" And it's like, you had 53 extra energy. Jim Hammond didn't win you this game. The 53 extra energy won you this game.
How do you have 53 extra?
I don't know, but they sent me a picture of a 53 power Jim Hammond. The point is, they were probably doing something else that was incredibly stupid as well. I don't know what it was exactly, but there was something stupid happening.
It was for sure
probably unrelated to the Jim Hammond, right? And I think that's kind of a good example of what Jim Hammond is in that context, where it's like, yeah, I mean, it's awesome, but also you probably were doing something else really dumb to get to the point where that happens. And if you're doing something really dumb, then there's the question of like, let's say you have, your 20 energy or whatever, right? What's the point of the Jim Hammond in the first place? Like, why are you playing a 1-drop in your deck with 20 energy instead of just a bunch of 6s? And that's the other awkward thing about Jim Hammond. Move decks, I think, have risen to the top of this metagame, which is, I gotta say, it's pretty cool. Like, it's pretty cool that they explicitly nerfed move decks. They were like, we hate this Human Torch Vulture thing. And everyone is like, man, I really think they killed move decks. And within a month, there are 3 maybe move decks at the top of the game. 2 I know for sure, Move Bounce and Big Move. And then arguably even the Move Tribunal deck is good. And I think it's hard not to talk about this in the context of the tech nerfs. The one card that people are really missing to like kill off a bunch of these move decks is, of course, Shadow King. But I kind of think that it's a wash. Let's say you get back Shadow King and Shang-Chi, but the move decks get back Cosmo. I think Big Move is still going to be one of the best decks in the game. And a lot of that is just down to Sparky's amazing, Human Torch scales ridiculously. And once you get literally once you draw Human Torch, you can just be like, oh, I want a lane. Like, that's how big the guy gets right now.
Yeah, so what I want to add to this is also a little bit about my personal lore as well, which is okay. So firstly, I'm very glad that like move decks are at the top right now, and it's not just like move bounce. There's also like the big move like you mentioned, right, with Helion, and also like some top end and stuff like that, Heimdall and all that kind of thing. But I feel like this is why the deck is at the top. Like when such a deck can exist, like top players will flock to it. It's also because a lot of Marvel Snap's winning is down to at the end on turn 6 choosing the correct 50-50, right? And I always use this term 51-49, which is like you know exactly where to put your stuff because you know your opponent's going to do the other thing, so you're going to win the location that they didn't put their stuff in, or you just got more power there or whatever. So I feel like move decks have this option on the final turn for you to deviate from like this location. I can go there instead, or I can go the other side, so move lets you do that. It keeps your opponent guessing, and on the side of yourself, if you're a good player, you kind of like sort of know where they might put their stuff, so you go the other side or something like that. So like when move is good, it allows you to do this kind of thing. And a lot of my success in Marvel Snap back then was because I was choosing the 50-50s more correctly than my opponent. And I think because move lets you do that, it's a top deck that deserves to be there because you are more often than not making the right choices compared to your opponent.
This is a really good time to talk about like a fundamental Marvel Snap concept that I've been thinking about a lot in relation to like not just Marvel Snap, but also like actual tactics, where it's like your power, even if you're outnumbered, it doesn't always matter. And I think about this in the current metagame. The example is like playing a Surtur or Scar tens deck with the end of turn deck, right? The end of turn deck is never going to have as much power as the tens deck. But by abandoning one lane entirely and focusing on just winning 2 of them, it can win 2 lanes. And that is because it has fully wasted an entire turn of the tens deck's output, right? Like it is entirely possible for it to win a lane with Thing First Steps and win a lane with Juggernaut. And it doesn't matter that the tens deck has an output range that is 5 to 10 points to 20 points, whatever it is, above what your output range is with the end of turn deck. And that kind of stuff is why you can win with, like, that is what makes Marvel Snap such a great and dynamic game, is that it because of the 3 locations, it is not always just who has the bigger number. It's where the bigger number is. And so when I'm playing against move decks with Human Torch, almost always what I'm doing is saying, I'm not going to beat the Human Torch. But if I can set up 3 lanes that beat the things that aren't Human Torch, I cannot lose this game. I'll lose one of those lanes to the Human Torch, but I'll win the other 2 as long as I'm big enough everywhere. And that is the same principle in action, and it's part of why Marvel Snap is an enjoyable game to play. So of the tech changes, I think there are 2 that stand out where the consensus has become don't revert these. And those are Enchantress and Negasonic. And Enchantress, I think the argument for not reverting it is just, this is pretty cool. I've enjoyed her at 5'8". I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf. I think if you looked at stats, it might be a nerf. But if you, I think a lot of high level players are telling me it's a buff. But even if you think it's buffing Enchantress, I think what it also does is make her less splashable. So it makes her a more specific choice you have to make, which is probably a good direction to go for tech cards. If you could have a change that makes a tech card feel stronger, but also be in less decks, that's really, really, really clever stuff. And then Negasonic, I think, once you play with it at 4 or 5, you're like, oh yeah, this probably shouldn't have been a 3 in the first place. Like, that's just like, it feels like Juggernaut, right? Like, it's not as ridiculous as Juggernaut, but it's in the same vein where it's just like, oh yeah, you know what? This probably wasn't supposed to be a 3 the whole time. Are there any others that stand out as things you wouldn't revert? Or do you have anything to add with regards to Enchantress and Negasonic? Because I heard you saying it's a buff. So
yeah, I mean, I wanna add on the Enchantress thing, which is like I think it's a buff, but it could stay this way as well. Like I like the point you made about the fact that like it's so called a better card, but it's also less splashable because like I think one thing you said in the previous video, which I 100% agree with, is like it gives rogue relevance, like it gives rogue relevance because some decks can't play a 5, they need to play the small guys, they need to play the 3, so it gives rogue some relevance, and I like that. And also, I like the fact that I can play a very powerful 5/8 right now. It's not like 5 cost cards are. I mean, they're about there, like 8 attack, right? So like, I mean, I like the fact that I can play a 5/8 that like negates my opponent's stuff. So yeah, I think Enchantress can just stay here. The Negasonic one is very interesting because yes, that card being at 3 is disgustingly too strong. Like
it's a little bit good, yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, it just fits, right? 3+3s or whatever, and just like invalidates opponent's turn 6. Heck, you could invalidate on curve, and it's also insane. Like invalidating the big 3 cost guy that they play on curve is also insane. Like if that's something you would want to do. But at the end of the day, I think Negasonic being harder to weave into multiple curves, right? Like I said, 3+3, right? It could just be like a 3+2+1 or that kind of thing on turn 6. The fact that now it's like strictly 4+2 or like 4+1+1, that kind of thing. Like there's less ways to weave Negasonic into curves, and I think that's very important for a card like Negasonic, because the stats are important to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, it's just making your opponent's card go boom for 3 costs in the past. Now it's making it go boom for 4, which means you pair it with less things. So I do think Negasonic staying the way it is fine. It's good, I think.
I've got one more for you.
Okay.
They should leave Alioth 6/6.
I mean, what would we want to do with it otherwise?
I think the thing is, part of this is like temporal, where it's like I'm worried about what happens if they revert Cosmo and Alioth and people just play a bunch of big move with Cosmo and Alioth and it sucks forever. But the other thing is, like, I have seen exactly 0 people complain about Alioth getting nerfed. I've seen people complain about Shang-Chi getting nerfed. I've seen people complain about Killmonger getting nerfed. I've seen people complain about Enchantress and Negasonic. Man. I've seen 0 people complain about Alioth getting nerfed. Everyone has just been like, I fully accept a world where Alioth doesn't exist, and I'm happy about it. And
okay, so the funny thing is, which has been more traumatic for you guys as viewers? I find this very interesting because I think like they have the same level of trauma, but like, so getting Shang-Chi and losing, or getting Alioth and losing, I feel like they share similar levels of traumatic experiences, but which one actually is worse for you? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that is a good question. So are we roughly in agreement that they should revert every other one of the changes? I think a few of them are just uncontroversial. They should revert that. Killmonger, they should revert that. I'm not convinced he needs to be what he currently is, but the fact that he nerfed Morgan Le Fay decks and destroy decks by not existing, they should just bring him back. Shadow King, they should revert that. Nobody plays him now, and everyone's playing move decks. Red Guardian, they should revert that. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. That's just a crazy one. And then this is probably the controversial one. I think Shang-Chi, they should revert that. I long-term would say that I would prefer a metagame where Shang-Chi is setting the baseline rather than a metagame where something like a Tens deck is setting the baseline, because I think it's harder to get new cards to be exciting in a Tens world. I do recognize that both of them are just sort of like providing design constraints. And designing around Shang-Chi versus designing around Tens, I think it's more interesting to design around Shang-Chi, where it's like, how do we make a card that is interesting and powerful, but isn't just numbers? I think that is more interesting. That's how you get stuff like Thing First Steps, a card that I underrated forever, and now I think is one of the best 5-drops in the games, right? Like, that's that kind of
did
design.
you underrate it? I thought we were saying that it was pretty good. I know I for sure said it was pretty good.
I feel like I was low on him because I think he's like one of the 3 best 5-drops in the game right now. Like, I love this guy. I love Thing First Steps right now. So I think I was definitely low on him. I was like, this could be like a 3.5 to 4-star card or whatever. I think that's the optimistic thing.
Like that, I think.
But like right now, I feel like he's like 4.5-star card, where it's like, this is like a this like is a guy I look to play in decks. Like, can I get this guy in my decks? Is like a question I ask myself a lot. Like, he's really good. Anyway, that is interesting to me. Like, designing cards in that space, that seems like a more fruitful space. Whereas, like, if let's say the role of Shang-Chi as metagame police is taken up by whatever the most efficient points deck that would otherwise get Shang-Chi is, right? You're talking about the Tens deck being the metagame baseline. How do you design a card to succeed in a world defined by that? You give it bigger numbers. And it's like, I think that's just less interesting.
I mean, we kind of knew this was going to happen, right? Like, if Shang-Chi is less of a card than it currently is, like, people will just go as tall as they can to a certain extent, right? So that is like, at least for now, what we are seeing with some of these like go super tall decks and like consistent 10 output decks, it's really just because Shang-Chi is no longer what it used to be, right? It just never hurts as bad anymore, even if you get Shang-Chi. That I agree. But at the same time, I'm also a bit curious, like, so like, because your argument is just like, is it better to have the meta's baseline be depicted by the amount of like Tens you can play, or like whether Shang-Chi blows up everything? You know, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure how to decide which is better personally, because I'm also not a game designer. But like, I never okay, so this is just me saying the same thing for the last 3 years. I never once had an issue with Shang-Chi as a card. Like, me personally, knowing that I could lose to this if I have like a freaking 30 power guy on the board, like, I knew that the Shang-Chi could have beaten me anyway. So like, I never found it a problem, but I guess I'm not too sure if like giving it back its old effect will be better or not. So that one I'm not sure, but I do know for sure that Killmonger, the destroy decks not being able to do destroy deck things without the power of Killmonger is very sad, right? Like, I'm not even a big destroy fan, but at the same time, like, the deck's not even fantastic. It wasn't even fantastic pre-nerf, you know. So like now post-nerf, it's just I lost a very easy activator. Like, Killmonger was like a global, like, okay, I can make Deadpool big wherever I play my Killmonger, that kind of thing. Like, I think that's super important, for example. So yeah, losing Killmonger just makes the destroy deck like way less than it already is, and I would like to see it back. And of course, Red Guardian. I love Red Guardian as a card. Just bring it back. It's just a good card. It's just I mean, what did Red Guardian do, man? I feel like out of all these like mega nerfs, do you guys not realize or feel? Okay, sorry, I'm ranting a little bit, but like, do you not realize that Red Guardian is the fairest of all these? Like, it's the one that, yeah, I mean, it works on everything, but it also just does -2, and then like it works on everything. It's not like it wins the game on its own. You know, you get my point. Like, Red Guardian was never. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, Red Guardian was never that bad. Like, honestly.
Let's talk a little bit about the remaining holy trinity of tech cards, which I think are largely more acceptable tech cards because they have inherently less built-in cube equity. These are, of course, Stardust, Mobius, and Mercury. I think that these are cards that I would hope that this presents a relatively new model for tech cards. Like, we previously have had a game defined by reactive tech cards as opposed to proactive ones. Proactive tech cards are interesting both in terms of how they play and the cube equity they have. Reactive tech cards, you never know they're there until they happen. And when you look at the cards that got nerfed, largely they were reactive tech cards. And even when you look at something like a Cosmo or an Alioth, the context in which those cards existed, albeit technically proactive, was the context of reactive tech cards to shut down things like Shang-Chi and Enchantress and Shadow King and all that, right? Like that was what Cosmo and Alioth were doing. So in a way, that's what I think of as like, is that 2024 Snap and is proactive tech cards 2025 Snap? Is this a better model for designing tech cards? That's the real question I want to ask. Is it a better model for designing tech cards to have them be static effects that need to be face up on the board to actually work? Or is it a worse model because it creates people just seeing the card and then they're like, well, I guess I retreat? You know, would you rather, which one of these is preferable?
So my take is very simple. Don't have to agree with me, guys, but my take is very simple. My take is that like second dinner is just being nice right now. They're just being like they're feeding into. Okay, so let me explain why I say they're being nice, right? So the thing about reactive tech is you need to think if it's gonna be there. The thing about proactive tech is you see it there, right? So TLDR is a skill issue thing. like the thing is, if you see it there, you know how to go away. If you don't there, you need to think if you want to go away. And most people don't go away. You guys don't like retreating, man. You know what I'm trying to say. Like, if you see it on the board, you know that I'm not staying for 8 versus Mobius. But if you don't know if they have Shang-Chi, you will think that maybe they don't have it. But you obviously, at the back of your mind, know they have it. You just don't want to leave. So it's just... Yeah, it's feeding into, like, Marvel Snap being like, all right, people hate all these cards just because they don't know how to leave the game. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I think that's actually like a coherent design philosophy, though, because I remember when they did Red Hulk and they were like, well, surely people will just leave about the Red Hulk, right? And then nobody did. Yeah. They were like,
but like, it literally shows that it's gaining power in the hand, dude.
Yeah, they were like, like, surely people are just going to be leaving when they know they're dead to Red Hulk. And then people were just like, not doing that.
No, they'll be
thinking
like, surely they don't play the biggest 6 drop on Earth on turn 6, right? Surely there's better things to do.
Like, that actually is a valid lesson about designing for your audience, right? Like, if you know for a fact that people don't want to leave, and you're like, well, because like, I think this is also just like a sort of systems problem where when you really zoom into it, what is the fun part of Marvel Snap? It's turn 6. That's the fun part of Marvel Snap. So it's not like, oh, skill issue, you're stupid for not wanting to leave. The game is telling you not to leave because that's where the fun is, right? You don't want to leave before the fun. That's not fun. You want to play a game and have fun, and you're being told that the optimal way to play it
fun. Okay, no, that's
not
just
for most people. Like I think that genuinely a lot of the fun of Marvel Snap is located on turn 6. And so designing a game where people opt out of that, and that is part of skill expression, is opting out of the fun. I could argue that's bad design. Like, I think that you could really make
the funny
that
thing is, I actually 100% agree with you. I was just trolling by saying that. Like, I know most people just want to like see what happens on turn 6. You know, like I'm pretty sure most people just want to see what happens on turn 6. But if you are a long time viewer of me, you know that I'm the master of running away from my problems and retreating. So
giant like stamp comes down. Rage bait successful. That worked, man. Wanted to give a bit of praise to Deadpool's Diner. It's a generous enough game mode that I honestly worry that it's so generous they're never going to do it again. But I was talking about this with Jerry, and he pointed out that there is precedent for having your events be super generous and then your economy not being super generous, and that precedent is 100% of gacha games. So maybe this could be the new normal. Who knows? Like, I obviously don't know, but it does feel like this was a very generous event that offered a lot of opportunity to pick up a lot of free value. If you care about like the part that I would be worried about if I'm them, I don't think it's bad for them if people pick up like a free card like Danger, right? If it's very easy to get that card. But where I wonder if it might be bad for them is they've made noises about the idea that if they make more of these cosmetics, they'll be able to, you know, get people to buy cosmetics, and maybe they'll be able to like increase the ratio of money coming in off cosmetics, decrease the ratio of money coming in off cards. And so far, we have never seen that really happen. But I do think that this event being such a vehicle to get so many cosmetics, like there are a bunch of borders that you can farm up. There's variants in the shop, a bunch of stuff where it's like, I got a bunch of cosmetics. I worry that might be like a setback in whatever internal journey they're taking to try to get to that point, assuming they are. Like, I think I am taking them at their word when I say that, like, this is the kind of thing that I would imagine they would want to do if it was financially viable, right? Having a game mode that is this easily farmable and full of cosmetics, I actually worry that could be bad for them, in a way that having a game mode that is really easy to farm and gives you a free card is not bad for them.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. And also, once again, I don't even know Jerry, but did the second time he said something that I 100% agree with. So, interesting, smart guy, yes.
Yeah.
But like, anyway, so recently I've spent a lot of time on gacha games as well, and I've noticed this very similar trend, which is, yes, the general like day-to-day cosmetic stuff is not exactly the most affordable thing ever, but their events, man, events are so mega farmable, and like no one is, people are just happy about that. So maybe Marvel Snap also realizes this, like, going forward, maybe it's gonna be like easily farmable events, and then people, it's a psychological thing, right? Like you take a bit of the mental load off of people looking at your game in the store and just like, oh my god, these variants are so expensive, 1.2k gold, that kind of thing. Because the event happening tomorrow gives me a lot of things for free. So it's just like a maybe psychological thing that works for like this kind of games, you know. So maybe that's actually correct. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think being generous with your like events gives you like some sort of like blanket or like safety net to be maybe a bit less generous in your day-to-day stuff. It's just like it just makes people think that you're just generous in general when you make a big deal out of it during your events, but your day-to-day stuff is actually still the same. So this is just what I feel.
Finally, a PSA. Kang came out. People were playing like 37 card Monty, all of that. It does occur to me that maybe we should do a Kang review instead of this topic. But I think this topic kind of covers it, which is to say, like, guys, please don't play Arishem in this metagame. And I don't mean like, oh god, I'm so afraid of Arishem. I mean like, whenever I queue up with any deck and I draw a coherent game plan and I see that they have 20 to 30 cards in their deck, I am snapping. Like, if I draw the hand Frigga, all right, well, the game's over. I'm doing something and you're not. The level of synergies that are available in the game right now has gotten so much drastically better since Arishem's original release, and he has gotten worse. And because of that, there are so many decks that are able to exploit synergies such that when they have whatever their synergy is, like I'm playing Hope Summers Kitty Pride decks, if I'm drawing Hope Summers, I feel like I'm going to win that game. Because I'm just playing actual cards. And like, God forbid you're playing a tens deck into Arishem. You could probably just snap that one on principle. Like, just, this is the matchup. I'm snapping it. And Arishem is relegated basically in all of these matchups to like, I get a location that screws you over and then I Legion it. Like, that's
a Legion
like,
deck.
It's
why not just play a Legion deck without the extra cards, right?
It is shocking to me. And part of this is the tech cards getting nerfed, right? Because normally stuff like this gets policed by other stuff in the metagame. But right now, every deck is just like some sort of synergy-based combo deck. And you, as the Arishem deck, you have no interaction for any of it other than, I hope I scam you. And if you don't scam them, you're dead. And that's every matchup you play.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say one for the Arishem lovers out there first, because now casual Marvel Snap gamer Lamby series also loves Arishem a lot. I like the idea of like opening a box and then I work with the box of random stuff that, I mean, that's essentially what Arishem is, right? You're working with a box of random stuff and then you get a bit of extra energy to work with your random stuff. That's what I like to do. When it was good, I was doing it a lot, but now it's not good, so maybe do it a bit less. But this one is like throwback to like many months ago. We did some Arishem topic and we made one very, very important point, which is that Arishem is only really ever relevant when like your extra energy allows you to churn out more than the average that your opponent puts out per turn, right? Like if they put like a 8 on board on this turn on average, yours is a 10, you know? Like that's why the whole Monty thing worked as well, because you could play like 13, was it? Agamotto or something like that, like super, super early.
And Thanos that started in hand, yeah.
Yes, correct. Like a 1 turn early 10 power Thanos, that kind of thing. So like Arishem was always only really good because you could put like slightly bigger things than the average. And now the point you made about like synergies allowing you to just go above that so easily makes Arishem super obsolete, I would say. As much as I like it, I get it as well. It's like if you cannot just on average be bigger than them easily, then it's really not an Arishem world.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching and listening. As always, I've been Lamby Series. He's been KMBest. You can catch this podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Lamby's about to take us out. and we'll see you in the next one.
I mean, because we balked that one on purpose. So don't like, don't comment, don't subscribe, and we may see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
What did I do?
You said I'm Lamby series, and wait, do you not realize it?
No, I what did I do?
Okay, you said I'm Lamby series, he's KMBest.
I am. I'm Lamby series. He's KMBest.
Oh, okay, wait. So that was on purpose, huh? Okay,
No,
okay.
I was not on purpose. I'm rolling with it. I'm you now.
Okay, so now we are both a bit lost.